So everybody else is doing it, so let's just jump right into a review for Dragon Ball Super Broly. Hey YouTubers, don't forget to subscribe and follow me on these social media platforms. Enjoy the video. So first and foremost, I just want to say, I didn't hate this movie. In fact, the more I sit on it, I don't feel like it really was that bad. I just don't see it as being as like memorable or even as fun as something like Battle of Gods or maybe even Fakatsu no F. And I feel like for a lot of people that's going to be harsh criticism, but let me explain. First and foremost, the thing I heard going into this movie from everyone who had seen it, my friends, my colleagues, just other people who were online or anything else like that, is first and foremost, it was 75% Broly, 25% everything else. Like, this was Broly's movie. That's why they called it Dragon Ball Super Broly. He was the main focus. And I understand where that sentiment comes from, but I feel like it's misguided for the most part. I feel like this is 25% Broly in terms of character motivation, building this world around him, and really introducing who this guy is, especially when you're introducing him to the canon of Dragon Ball Super, Dragon Ball Z, wherever it really fits in the show, and not just simply one of the old time movies that had nothing to do with the original story of Dragon Ball. For 25% of this movie, and every single second of that 25% is worth watching. Every single second of that 25% makes this movie one of the best movies ever created for a Dragon Ball property. And every single Dragon Ball fan should go watch it for that reason. I want to take a little bit of a side here because this is when I'm recording it. The day after it opened, that's when I actually saw it on Thursday afternoon. And this is probably going to go up Thursday night, Friday morning, whenever it actually gets up. And I have to say, the news came out, this movie on Wednesday made $7 million. And if you take the amount of people front loading, obviously going to be hugely front loaded, where people are going to rush out first day, and then it's still projected to make around $50 million in a 6-day come by the end of MLK weekend, which is a huge weekend, at least in terms of January, having to go up against Glass and all these other stuff. One of the reasons it's going to fall off is because Glass is going to take a lot of its IMAX and other premium spots, just because of the way the industry works and everything else like that. So don't be overly sad, but everyone sees this coming. Everyone has saw the Dragon Ball Super Broly movie opening really big and then kind of collapsing, but still the opening itself is really impressive. And I think that, along with the Macy's Day Parade and Thanksgiving with the float for Goku and all this other stuff that's been happening recently, is a validation for everyone who has been a huge anime and or Dragon Ball fan for the longest of times. Like, I remember back in the day, like middle school, even throughout high school and everything, liking anime, liking Dragon Ball or anything else like that was so lame. I mean, it would really hurt your social status, but we're not living in that time anymore. And I feel like anyone who likes anime, who's at any level or any age at this point, has something to point to. Like, these movies are successful. These brands are successful, and people are actually really starting to take them in terms of pop culture in the United States. And it's only going to grow and grow and grow, and we have a lot to thank for when it comes to Dragon Ball and the way that it's adapted or the way that it's kind of mellowed people out in the United States. And that is a huge win. Before I get into anything else, that itself is a huge win. But getting back to the movie, Dragon Ball Super Broly is a mess. I have to say that, like, I wouldn't say it's disappointing. I wouldn't say it's actually a bad movie. It's just a mess, because there's so many parts of the film that feel like it's just chopped to pieces. I mean, butchered by somebody who didn't care about what was going on, or somebody who thought, okay, this is something that's going to be in the Blu-ray home release, which I'm sure myself and everyone listening to this will agree needs to be bought, needs to be watched, and needs to be seen the way that it was always meant to be seen. It's just kind of frustrating and a little depressing as a Dragon Ball fan that we didn't get this movie the way it deserved to be seen on the big screen. We have to wait for the Blu-ray release, and that's just disingenuous. That's a little bit obnoxious to me. And if all the rumors are true that maybe Dragon Ball Super is going to be coming back sometime in 2019 or early 2020, and they might even pick up with this story arc from Dragon Ball Super Broly and create the next arc for the new television show and then kind of jump off from there if they don't just completely adapt the manga. It's weird to me that this is going to be like the starting off point. Like, we're going to get this movie and then it's going to be turned into either a longer movie on a home release or even just a manga chapter or something like a new anime series where we're going to get the full idea of what Toriyama wanted to bring to the screen, and we just have to wait. This whole movie is a tease. That's what it's going to feel like, and it really, the final product of this film feels like that. A tease, butchered, completely messy in some points, to the point where, like, okay, I'm not really sure what happened here. It feels like they cut a ton of scenes between this scene and this scene, and on the first viewing too. I mean, it's just obviously, it's apparent everything that they did to start the movie with Broly, with Paragus, introducing him with a high power level 41 years in the past, with King Cold coming with Frieza, introducing himself to the Saiyans, King Vegeta sending off Broly and Paragus going rogue to go find his son, cutting to the point where it seems like Broly would have actually gone grade ape. That's something that they wanted to show, but they didn't have enough time for whatever reason, and so they had to cut that out and they had to explain it later like they had already shown it happening, so the audience would have an understanding of what's going on with Broly and his power. That's a little jarring to me. And then also having a completely individual second opening taking place 5 years after that extended opening for the movie, that's just basically Dragon Ball minus with Bardock. Completely unnecessary and one of the weirdest things about the movie, because we already knew who Goku is, and it's not even that important to the movie other than showing that Frieza blew up Planet Vegeta, which obviously if you're a Dragon Ball fan you know of, and if you're not a Dragon Ball fan, it's something that they could have slided in under the radar or made way more apparent in a much more impactful way sometime in the point of the movie. Like, okay, most fans will know that Frieza's lying to Paragus, he's lying to Broly, and that's not really going to affect them, but maybe they could just like sort of shove it in there somewhere where Paragus gets really mad at Frieza and he goes after Frieza because he's like, I know I didn't like King Vegeta, but you destroyed my whole planet and that's my loyalty, and you realize that all of this pettiness is built up from him, where he's been living with Broly on this deserted planet, and he thinks that he's turned, or he hates the Saiyans for one reason or another, but he realizes that he loves Planet Vegeta and he didn't really want to betray it. Like, he just wanted revenge on Vegeta or King Vegeta and Prince Vegeta, whatever, but he didn't want to hurt his planet. He didn't want to hurt his people, and this guy that he's been working for, someone he thought he could trust, actually was the one who destroyed his planet, despite the fact that he's been telling him that a meteor destroyed the world. And for anyone who knows the canon of Dragon Ball is seeing that coming. It's ironic, but it's also like, okay, it's kind of poetic and I can live with it because I know what's going to happen. But anyone who doesn't know Dragon Ball might actually be genuinely shocked by that moment and really interested in what that means for Paragus, what that means for Broly. But no, they have this extended second opening of the movie introducing Bardock and Gine and Goku, and then they also end it with Raditz and Nappa and Vegeta, which is cool. Like, all of that is really fun, but it just kind of falls flat on its face and completely useless to the overall story before we get back into introducing Broly and Paragus. And then just almost as soon as you do that, they get right into the fights. And to me, like, you could sit there and say, and I have to admit, the animation for this movie is absolutely fantastic. I cannot believe what they were able to do with the animation for this movie. But overall, the fights are jarring. Maybe it's because it's on the big screen in a dark room. They're moving around so fast and there's so much happening on the screen all the time. It's like, okay, I can't really follow this. This isn't really the way that I remember watching Dragon Ball. There is a little bit of charm to seeing Dragon Ball go super slow to the point where you can see individual punches and not the camera moving around with all the individual characters that are fighting at any given time. So the point was like, I can't really see what's going on. It's almost the anime equivalent of the Born Identity shaky cam nonsense that they've done with the action and how that changed the action genre. It's like, I just want you to be stationary for a second so I can see the great punches that Broly, Gogeta, Goku, Vegeta, and Frieza are throwing at each other. That's all that I want, and yet the movie cannot take a moment to stop its camera from going one place or another, throwing punches, throwing ki blasts, all this other stuff. It's almost constant movement from the very beginning of the fight until the very end. And I know everyone's been giving it praises for that, but I found it jarring and a little distracting and a little bit boring after a time. It's like, okay, I realize I'm not really seeing anything that's going on. Like, yeah, I see the landscape moving, but I don't see Goku and Vegeta and Broly and all these other people flying around attacking each other or getting any real significant punches in. They're just throwing ki blasts and screaming at each other as the camera kind of zips right past them, and I'm not really seeing anything that's actually happening during this fight. And that was the vast majority of the movie. I felt like we were there immediately and it just didn't feel right. I know I could be missing like a ton of interesting things in this movie, and I'm probably going to make a video going back over all this stuff. One of the things I want to do in the future, hopefully this weekend, I can sit down when I get back home on Saturday and I can start writing down like what this movie should have actually been and how it should have been written, because there's so many weird things about it. First and foremost, the biggest weird thing about this movie, in my opinion, is the fighting with Frieza. Now, Goku and Vegeta, I feel like I'm dumb. So Goku and Vegeta use instantaneous movement and instantaneous transmission to go to Piccolo as they learn how to do the fusion to create Gogeta. And it was weird to me that, like, at first I was like, wait, first of all, why would Vegeta be okay with just leaving Bulma there with Broly and Frieza fighting each other, like, for an hour? An hour's time, at least from what they were said in the dub, that they had to wait 30 minutes between their two failed fusions in order to get Gogeta. That was weird to me, but then I was like, oh wait, yeah, like, Whis is there. He's not gonna let anything happen to Frieza. But at that point, we'd been away from the fight or away from all the other people in the sidelines for so long that I actually forgot that Whis was there. Like, it's kind of crazy to me that Whis was there the entire time and he wasn't making quips or jokes or anything else like that. They focused so much on the fighting, and that's one of the coolest things they did in Fakatsu no F, was focus on Whis and Beerus eating ice cream, doing this little back and forth banter, all the other characters surrounding Fakatsu no F's storyline, you know, on the sidelines trying to talk to each other, or just having general shine before Goku and Vegeta actually showed up, or maybe even Battle of Gods that had specific shine to every single character in the show, or the past show, or the narrative, or, you know, the whole series. Like, everyone got some shine in the theatrical cut, enough to the point where when the climax of the fight got underway, you felt so in tune with the characters fighting or with everything going on that you couldn't help but smile and want to see Goku once again achieve the impossible by defeating the person who's so much stronger than him. This movie has none of that charm. This movie has nothing but fighting and just melodrama with Broly, Paragus, and Goku and Vegeta fights from almost the halfway point to the very end. And that's my point. When they went to go, I completely forgot that Whis was there with Bulma to protect her. That, to me, is the biggest calling card of how boring that fight got. Like, there was nothing to interrupt the camera movements and all of the shaky stuff they did between Goku and Vegeta starting to fight Broly, to the point where they had to leave because they were so beaten up and damaged that they had to figure out how to fuse in order to fight Broly. And another thing about that I absolutely hate, and maybe someone's going to dispute this in the comment section, I understand Goku and Vegeta fusing staying in their base form. They shouldn't have to wait 30 minutes because their power should be so astronomical that it would really dilute the 30-minute timeline that they have to fuse. But we just got done with an arc that this movie introduced and talked about at length at the very beginning, with Goku and Vegeta fighting the Tournament of Power. 45 minutes in the Tournament of Power, fighting non-stop, using all of their energy, not trying to overuse it, not trying to fight so hard that they would lose stamina and all this other stuff. And everybody in the community was like, hey, you know what? Like, we're going to explain why this makes a whole lot of sense using all the other fights in Dragon Ball, and that none of their fights usually last like 45 minutes. So this is huge. It's long for them and they have to be very smart about it. And then this movie just willy-nilly, for jokes, for just simply jokes, has Frieza fight, lose most of the time, but fight Broly for an entire hour as Goku and Vegeta try to figure out how to use fusion. I'm sorry, one of the coolest things about the Gogeta from Fusion Reborn versus Janemba was the fact that Goku and Vegeta messed up fusion and then they had to avoid Janemba until that fusion wore off. It wasn't a huge part of the movie, but it made it way more charming. Goku and Vegeta completely go away from the action and they have to, you know, like, it gives them like a free card. Frieza was just simply there to give him a free card and just get beaten up for an entire hour and not lose his gold form, which makes no sense considering what we saw throughout the Tournament of Power and the way that he was getting beat down on by everyone else, especially since you have this calling card at the very end of the movie that says, like, maybe not calling card, but you have this indication from Goku at the very end of the movie that Broly might actually be stronger than Beerus, and there was all these people saying that Jiren was stronger than Belmont, but Belmont is not the strongest god of the destruction, so maybe at the end of the day, like, Jiren is not as strong as someone like Beerus or anything else like that. But now Goku's even saying that, you know, Broly might be stronger than Beerus when he gets all of his rage or, you know, his latent abilities out or anything else like that we saw throughout this movie. It was kind of crazy. Like, that's the stuff that made me so mad about this movie, and it's one of the things I wish that they would be able to take back. But that's not the world we live in, and I feel like I've been really hammering this movie down, trying to tell you why I was a little bit disappointed with it. But, you know, in retrospect, just looking at everything that they did give us, it was a solid story for the most part. When it comes to Dragon Ball movies, I wasn't really expecting a whole lot. I mean, Dragon Ball Z Battle of Gods, that one put it on a completely different level. And being the first Dragon Ball movie, especially the beginning of the Dragon Ball Renaissance that I saw in theaters, for me, it puts it on so much of a level that I cannot ever experience that again. And I went into this movie, maybe fairly or not, expecting something like that. Like, I wanted to be blown away, and that just was never going to happen with this film. Not with these characters, not with the story they were trying to tell, and not with the, you know, the onslaught of Dragon Ball Heroes and Dragon Ball Super and Dragon Ball Battle of Gods and Dragon Ball for Gods and OF, and also the Broly stuff and Dokkan and all this other stuff like Legends and everything Dragon Ball for the last couple years. We just don't live in that world anymore, and I feel like that's really important to note. For what it is, this movie was great, but I felt like in terms of a Dragon Ball fandom and in terms of what I want as a fan versus, probably, you know, you can disagree in the comment section below or not, in terms of being a Dragon Ball fan, I want a Dragon Ball anime. I want a weekly anime, even if it's not great, because a weekly anime, good or bad, it gives us something to talk about. Good or bad, it keeps it relevant. And I feel like this movie, no matter how good you think it is not really relevant. After a couple of weeks, it's just gonna come in, it's gonna fade away. It's gonna be great to see Broly again. It's gonna be great to see Gogeta again. They're all canon now, and we can always celebrate that. And we're going to look forward to getting this on Blu-ray. But at the end of the day, it's over and done with. It doesn't advance the story enough to keep it interesting, and it doesn't grow the audience so much as, oh yeah, this is back and it's kind of awesome and interesting. but it's not memorable. It's not revolutionary enough the same way that Battle of Gods was back in the day. And that's really just my thought here. I want to know what everyone's thoughts about this are. Like, do you like that? Do you feel like I made some good points here? Because a lot of this was kind of more of a rant than an actual review. There was some genuinely good parts about this movie though. Everything about Broly growing up, everything about him with the Frieza Force people and trying to make relationships and seeing that he was so unaccustomed to domestic living, his relationship with Paragus and everything else that they did there, that was the best part of the movie. I mean, that part, if the whole movie was like that, I would, this would be a 10/10. I would tell everyone to go see it, and I wouldn't have nearly a 20-minute video just talking about all of the problems I had with it. But like I said, that's not 75% of the movie, that's 25% of the movie. And then the other 25% of the movie is just an unnecessary reintroduction of who Goku and Bardock and Jin are and how they fit in this world, and just kind of a reintroduction of Goku's character that's completely unnecessary to the story. And then like the last 50% is either fighting or them kind of gearing up to fighting and talking about why they still need to fight. And it's like, okay, yeah, like every Dragon Ball story needs to be that, but it doesn't need to be that so much on its nose, especially after everyone who's even seen it or anyone who was trying to sell this movie to me said that this whole movie would be more of a space opera where we're dealing more with Broly's character. Yes, there's that, but it could have been so much more. And maybe a lot of that was cut. Like I said, there's so much stuff that feels so cut up and really not exploratory with Broly's character and all of the Goku Dragon Ball minus stuff that maybe the extended cut's going to be far greater. I really think that the Battle of Gods extended cut's far greater than the one that we got in theaters. People disagree, but I'm just gonna leave it at that. Hope everyone has really enjoyed this video. I actually really enjoyed talking about it. I love Dragon Ball so much, and if there's one thing that this movie did for me, it got me, a little bit more interested in talking about Dragon Ball again. I really hope that that interest continues, and I really hope that people come back to this franchise and really excited about any new movies, the new manga chapters coming out every month, or maybe even the return of the anime. And if the anime does return, I just consider, and I feel like the whole community, not the whole community, obviously there are people who felt jaded about Dragon Ball Super, but a lot of people are going to come back very excited and wanting to explore and talk about every single episode and every single thing that happens in the future of Dragon Ball. And that's really exciting to me. I want them to bring it back. I want them to bring it back with Broly. I wanted them to explore these issues a little bit more and really give us the best possible story that they can on a weekly basis, and not having to wait like months for a movie that's a little bit underwhelming considering the wait time for it. Maybe that's really what it was, but I'm going to leave it to everyone in the comment section below to tell me what they thought about Dragon Ball Super Broly. Was it a good movie? Was it a bad movie? What was your favorite part? What was your least favorite part? And anything else you want to tell me in the comments. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Hit that bell over by the subscriber button to notify you every single time I upload. And hey guys, if you want to talk to me about Dragon Ball Super Broly, Dragon Ball anything, maybe even the horror movie related topics I cover on my other channel, box office stuff, or anything else, make sure to go down to the description section below, hit that link, and go subscribe or follow me on Twitter. Because Twitter is so much easier to talk to you guys, way easier than YouTube. YouTube does not notify me about who's commenting on what, or whether or not anyone even replies to my comments. So I can get completely lost in the fray here. So just a general heads up if you want to talk to me, so go follow me on Twitter. I hope everyone's having a fantastic day. It's been real.